What is your full name?
Christopher Stephen Olson,
Where are you from?
Detroit Rock City,
How old were you in 2009?
41.
What do you recall about your financial life before the Great Recession?
Before the Great Recession, I had a very good job. I worked with a law firm that paid me an exorbitant amount of money, and I didn't have any financial worries other than where to put it, my money.
How did you discover that our nation was facing a severe economic situation?
When my friend and the owner of my law firm sat me down and told me he had to fire me.
So what other financial hardships did you experience during this time?
Well, aside from losing my job, I then had to begin looking for another job under circumstances where there weren't any. And that caused me to have to live off of my 401k retirement savings, which caused me to have to, in addition to deplete my retirement savings, also to pay the draconian tax penalties that are associated with withdrawing them before it's time to withdraw them, meaning before retirement. The tax penalties are 50% of your savings. So during that time immediately following the recession, I take it to begin in December of 2008, when the economy was hemorrhaging 750,000 jobs a month. Those were the last few days of the Bush presidency. Beginning at that time, that's when I lost my job and had to start living off retirement savings, but doing so at a rate of having to pay taxes of 50% of what I was living off of. So it not only depleted it because I had to live off of it, but it also depleted it because of the tax consequences associated with it. Does that make sense?
So what did you think of both presidents' reactions or the presidential administration's reactions to the Great Recession, Bush and Obama?
My opinion is that George W. Bush was the cause of the... let me strike that. I don't think he did anything. I don't think Bush did anything to soften the blow. And as I said, in December of 2008, which was the last month of the Bush presidency, the economy was hemorrhaging 750,000 jobs a month. The world was on fire, and frankly, all the houses in my neighborhood were upside down and for sale, and nobody was buying them because they didn't have money, and there was no credit to buy them. And frankly, I was more concerned about eating and my ability to eat going forward than whether I would live in a nice house. Secondly, that January, Barack Obama came in. He pressed for and obtained the saving of the auto industry, which here was the difference between life and death. And I will only note that from that day forward, there were consecutive quarters of economic growth until he left office just this past January. Only 8 years of consecutive economic growth since that time. So, in other words, I feel that Bush did little to nothing, and that Obama inherited a very bad mess, to borrow from President Orange Clown, and and he fixed it as much as he could. I mean, it's still not a wonderful economy for anybody, I don't think, here. But it has gotten better every quarter from December 2008 until January 20th, 2017.
And so do you believe we still have a possibility of having more recessions and depressions, and do you think we can prevent this in the future?
I think we do have a possibility of having them in the future, and we can prevent them from happening. One of the things that I mentioned to you before we started recording this conversation is that there is a movie called The Big Short, which explains the bundling and sale of bad mortgage loans that was incentivized by brokers of these kind of loans who were paid not for the quality of the loans that they made, but for the volume of them. And then those bad loans were then bundled and sold. And for a long time, they were sold just like any other investment vehicle. And because there were so many of them, and because it was just gone crazy in terms of the volume of these loans, nobody actually sat down to look at the quality of the loans and whether those loans would go bad. And that went on for such a long time that there was a critical mass which was reached where there's so many of these loans that if they failed as a group, they would crash the economy, which is exactly what happened. So, at some point, this is what's in the movie The Big Short, somebody actually looked at the quality of the loans that were in these big bundles of mortgages and actually weighed it up and looked at the numbers and saw that they were going to fail, and he invested accordingly and made a very large amount of money on the failure of the economy.
Are you still recording?
Yeah.
So I do think it could happen again. And in fact, one of the points that was made in the movie is that the very same kind of loans that were being made that caused the recession to happen in 2008 and 9 are being made again by the mortgage lending community. They have a different name, but it's the same device and vehicle. And so to answer your question about whether it can be prevented, I think it can be by simply prohibiting these kind of loans and regulating them. But I am sincere in my belief that that all depends on who's in power in the White House and also in other agencies of the federal government, and their willingness to enforce the prevention of those kind of loans being made.